Chris, thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Jack.
How's your RSA trip been so far?
I'm thankful it's pretty much over. This is my last activity for the week, and I'm ready to go home, Washington, D.C. area.
Yes, nice. Love it. So, for anybody who doesn't know who you are, could you tell us who Chris is?
Yeah. So Chris Camacho, co-founder and COO of Abstract. We are in the next gen AI composable SIEM. I'll talk more about that throughout the podcast. But prior to being at Abstract, I was at a company called Flashpoint, where we had a nice exit to a private equity, took them to where we could on the revenue side. I started there really early, as that business was just starting to build and take off. And we had a wonderful time there. More importantly, part of that, I was on the buy side. So coming from major financials at the World Bank for many, many years, and then at Bank of America doing threat management. That's really where I think my career took off, where my expertise, building teams, managing teams, and working with amazing people that I still keep in contact to this day.
Incredible. Thank you. Kind of first question, and in relation to what Abstract do and your expertise, how do you define a good data strategy in relation to security operations?
Yeah, I honestly think this is probably the foundation of what many companies have tried to start with, or in some cases completely never think about until it's too late. Companies need to look at their data, need to look at their logs. And for the longest times, maybe for regulatory or for security operations centers, they just started sending anything and everything that had a log to a system, a SIEM, right? And over time, as more systems came online, more desktops, laptops, devices, IoT devices, SaaS-based applications, they just continue to send data to the SIEM. It becomes expensive with retention. It just becomes a big blob of information. And then they're trying to work themselves backwards. Like, how did we get here? How did we end up so much hosting costs and ingestion? And it's usually because there was no data strategy. They just thought by sending everything and querying all that data and waiting minutes or sometimes longer on search queries because it's just so massive that was the way. In this day and age, if you really focus on what's important, what needs to be reviewed by the SOC or analyzed by the SOC teams, and what data can be moved around or stored in different types of storage or different places, that's when you really have these mature teams with a true data strategy.
Love it. Great answer. Rather than asking you what a great data strategy looks like, let's talk about what a crappy data strategy looks like.
And I really think it's sending everything, right? Most companies, like I said, they just want to send this device, these endpoints, this network, send all the data to wherever they're hosting their data, whether it's a data lake, a SIEM. But most of it is noise, right? Most of it literally is like an event that happened. If you add all those events up, like if your system is generating every time you're doing an activity, just an event, why do you need to store all that data? Can it be correlated? Can it be brought down to one event over a period of time? Can it be moved to a different type of storage for compliance or incident response reasons down the road? And that is where people need to start focusing on that data strategy.
Maybe an obvious question: if they don't, what will happen?
Typically what happens is they come running to companies like ours and saying, hey, we need to reduce our SIEM spend. And it usually starts with like a Splunk or a Google SecOps or a Microsoft Sentinel, where they start now having their teams monitor the ingestion rates, because as they go over, there's cost implications. Or when the renewal for that contract comes, it jumps 2 or 3x sometimes. So mostly what companies kind of scramble and they try to get on top of it, but if they don't act right away, then they're scrambling on renewal is cost. That burden of sending so much data to my SIEM, and then they're starting to say, what can we start removing? Which then actually puts you in a less of a security posture, right? Because why are you removing data? It's because of costs. And what risk does that bring to the organization? Because you didn't apply the data strategy. So it's cost usually that's driving that.
And again,
One more thing, and probably slow queries. So by having such an amount of data and your team needs to run a rapid query because there's an active incident, those queries take longer because of the tremendous amount of data.
I know this might be a case by case basis, but is there a general rule of thumb of the data that you should be using and not using?
Yeah, so we try to work with at least our customers on an assessment of what they're currently sending, wherever they're sending the data to, and then start trying to prioritize what is truly the risk or what your security operations center should be worried about. So one of the major gaps that we've seen as we approach our customers is SaaS-based applications. All these SaaS tools have had some type of breach in the past year, all over the news. And we try to say, are you sending this data to your SIEM? Sometimes they are, maybe 6 out of 10 times, but those others are like, we've been trying, we can't figure out how, there's no real connectors. And that's where, like, for example, our expertise on how to build API connectors into that type of data and start trying to correlate that events into your overall security program can start trying to find what we call like the needles in the needles of haystack, right? And now with AI, what we're starting to see is a lot of people are buying AI tools and pushing out all these AI components to their employees, and some with deeper access for developers and all those that have like that type of engineering assets, and that's great. And a lot of people are investing in security tools to protect and monitor these AI systems. But what we're noticing already is they're deploying that stuff quick. AI is prevalent and mass deployed. Governance is slowly behind it because it's just moving that fast. So policies and governance are quickly trying to catch up. And then they're buying security tools to control various aspects of these AI tools. But then some early adopters are starting to think about logs. What do we do with these logs? Again, we can help you with bringing those logs into at least our system and start again trying to correlate or look for anomalies or people trying to do the wrong type of prompts, right? Or someone trying to circumvent systems or really take the shortcuts that they shouldn't be doing and alert the teams to that from a security perspective.
Going back to SIEMs, how are teams currently using SIEMs?
As more of a hunting, incident response and detection capability. If there's an incident, an event, or a CISO or somebody says, hey, we need to make sure that we're not exposed to this, or we need to make sure the health of our systems is up and operational. That's typically how we've been seeing SIEMs used for the longest times. I think it will always continue to be used that way, except in this day and age, you can have the data dispersed into so many different systems all over the place. So the ability and capability to either centralize the logs or be able to query logs in different places through a system like ours, or apply what was called these detection rules on the data stream so that the teams are able to respond or get alerted to events much, much faster. We call it, in our case, we call it shift left on the alert stream. It's all about speed for the most part. There are some companies that say, hey, saving a minute or two or maybe more, while nice, isn't the most critical. We just need to maintain and have healthy data and trustable data. And again, we focus on the health, making sure all the data is supposed to be coming as it should be, but at the same time, incorporating the speed as much as we can. So it's trustworthy and reliable and fast.
Brilliant. You mentioned there shift left, shifting the signals left. Is there ever a danger of just moving the noise left?
Without a data strategy, honestly, that is another danger area. And then if you're trying to shift all your data and then trying to actually review them as they come in the data stream, and it's going to get noisy or it's going to get voluminous, too much volume, too much data. So if you don't apply a data strategy, but we work in our case with our clients on what they should be pushing to us, what should be moving in different storage, and what they should be applying the rules to, so you don't have those issues.
I wanted to come to the modular versus monolith.
Yeah.
Not debate, but conversation. What changes in how teams operate when they take a more modular approach to the security stack?
Yeah. So this has been, in our opinion, a game changer for us. And where we have tried to differentiate in the market. It took us a while to come up with the productized version of what we call composable modularized solution or SIEM. we are market leaders in what's called the data pipeline space. And that opens the door to us for pretty much any client that currently has a SIEM. We can go knock on a door and say, what is your data strategy? How much are you investing or pushing out to your SIEM? We can probably help you reduce the ingestion rates there. And we don't like to come in and say, we're going to save you X amount of dollars on your current SIEM spend, because 9 times out of 10, what we found is we will, and we can save, reduce spend on the overall SIEM. But what they lacked was other data sources that they've been wanting to bring into the SIEM, but couldn't because of costs, right? They wanted to bring on these SaaS-based applications, or maybe some AI tools, or maybe the system that's very customized and they just had the teams logging into it, but ingestion rates were just out of control and they couldn't afford to bring more data in, or they could afford it, but they didn't see the need, right? And there was a gap in their security controls. So what we find is if we can help reduce firewall, endpoint, cloud-based data to the SIEM via our data pipelines, then they start bringing in other data sources that they weren't as prioritized, but wanted to get into the SIEM. And then you start heading kind of back to where your original SIEM license was, but they have deeper, richer data now for their teams to have one centralized system and for more rules to aggregate and do some correlation. So that's where we've been helping the teams. And then from there, we add the detection. So that's the second module, so that we can get detections in the data stream. We write the detection rules. We can implement their detection rules. When you add in the retention storage, we call it a Lake Villa in our case, then you pretty much have a full-blown SIEM. So we've been in situations where we start with our data pipelines, add the detections, and then they start adding the retention. And they're like, I'm running side by side with my main SIEM. You guys are doing 90% of that capability at a fraction of the cost. Why do I need both? And then we're like, well, that's totally up to you, but you don't. You can do all that work and probably innovate with you on other features that you've always wanted or never had because the other SIEM is just so large or isn't able to innovate as fast as ours. So we've been able to displace SIEMs, legacy SIEMs in that case, and that's how we got to the composable SIEM journey. So we can grow with you, we can choose your own adventures, we can work with competitors, and we're just here to work with the teams and give them value or help build requirements based on their needs.
So I'm not CISO, which I'm sure you know already, but that seems like a no-brainer. When you're speaking to customers about this, or anybody about this, what are the biggest blockers or challenges for people to take on this approach?
So at my last company, we sold threat intelligence, very critical threat intelligence. A lot of times we had information about the company, a specific person, a specific threat, something, a vulnerability that the company had no visibility on. And I could get to, let's say show you this data. You would log into the platform, see the value and say, I must have this, and probably just need a CISO to sign off. And we sold a subscription. Great. And it was a valuable subscription, right? We were able to then incorporate it into other tools. Over here, because the logs and the data are such critical infrastructure to the enterprise, it requires a lot of buy-in from stakeholders, right? So it's cloud teams, it's detection teams, it's the CISO. In some cases, it's CIO visibility just because how important the data is and the cost factors to it, right? So we have to win over multiple champions that they can trust our solution, that it works, that it's innovative, that, if they're going to go into a deal with us, that it's worth their time, not just from procurement, but for deployment, right? Because they have to route data through us in order to do something with it. And if we're taking over their entire SIEM project, many times that SIEM has been used by operators and security operations centers for 2, 3, 4, maybe longer years. They have to get used to a whole new system. So it's a lot of buy-in that's very different from what I've been used to in the past. But it's been great to show validation of our product, the tech, and more importantly, the use cases that we've come up with, and then go out and deploy and be successful with these customers that we call partners.
Fair enough. Right, that makes sense. So it's more of a case of just people not wanting to change from what they're doing.
There's a lot of that, right?
Classic human.
So typically, exactly. Nobody wants change. I think the change is being, let's just say, I'm not going to say forced, but maybe pushed on them because of budget concerns and architecture and the data strategy.
Got you. Right. Oh, that's very interesting. Okay. I need to mention AI. I'm sorry.
Of course.
It's gonna come up. Can you run me through like the good and the bad of AI within Sims right now?
I think in the beginning, AI, and this is still the case, but I think we're moving way past this. It's just able to summarize an activity or create maybe a quick rule in a sim right now. Where we, at least, and I think others will probably follow, is there's this whole, and if you walk the showroom floor, you've seen AI SOC, right? AI SOC is the next big thing. They were getting well funded. Many companies, probably way too many for what the demand is right now. But it's probably in the early stages or infancy of where things are headed. Tier one SOC. The problem with many of these companies is they don't own the data, so they have to depend on solutions like ours or a bigger SIM or other places in order to take action or create SOC use cases. What we like to do is say, for teams that have us deployed, using our data, humans in the loop operating on the data, and then for mundane queries or things that they can do very trivial, can we create an AI SOC use case? It's kind of like a workflow, or we call it an insight that can start automating that process. And we're not trying to take people out of their jobs. We're just trying to make them more efficient, right? Can we automate that process? So either you can become a level 2 analyst, right? Or you can think of other unique activity that you could be doing on your day job because this process has been automated. So we're trying to work with the human side of what they do, but alongside of them, not to displace them, but to make them better with AI components. That's probably where we see the future of this SIM going, because in the past, you had to deploy an army worth of SIM engineers and analysts and operators and SOCs. I think that's going to be reduced where they don't need to have an army for 24/7 monitoring, just the right amount of people that have expertise, that know the business and understand the business, and in a system in parallel that's doing some of the mundane queries that are just repeatable, looking for those anomalies and alerting the SOC that this might be something, an event. What do you want to do? What do you want to kick off?
Got you. Not removing SOC engineers at all, but it's more a case of leaner teams, augmenting what you're doing so you become more effective and you can do the higher level stuff.
Leaner, faster, and more effective on the high level stuff. Yes.
That makes sense.
This presents a problem in the industry, though. I have a son who is graduating from high school this year, and actually he's an intern with us right now, and he's fascinated with cybersecurity.
Awesome.
And he's telling me in his inner circles, there were going to be a lot of people that were going to study cybersecurity in college. But in the news and all over, it's rare these days to really find entry-level cybersecurity jobs coming out of school right now. Maybe this year, maybe the next year, you'll still find them. People used to go to the big consulting firms to get their careers and started in cybersecurity, and there are plenty of jobs there. But those jobs year over year are reducing because finding the entry-level jobs in cybersecurity is very hard. So we're going to have to figure out how to get graduates that do study cybersecurity into some type of stepping stone, probably thanks to AI, that gets them elevated, that makes them beneficial to companies because they have the AI mentality and the basics and the knowledge of cybersecurity, but can immediately plug in and be effective much faster than how we used to see it back in the day.
That's a good question. I think for the first time in history, your parents aren't telling their kids or advising their kids to go and study computer science or computer engineering or cybersecurity, for example. And it's not foolproof that you're going to have a job straight away.
Right.
Which
Anymore.
is scary.
Yeah.
Yeah. What would if you had your time again, and I know you're passionate about cybersecurity, what would you do? Or is there a career that you think is more protected?
There's plenty of careers that are protected. I probably would go back and study more on an MBA, like a business side of things.
Oh, interesting.
Right? Understanding the business side more in depth than I do now. I have information security degree, information sciences degree, and I've learned the finance and the business side through joining multiple companies, starting one now. But that's what I'm encouraging my oldest son to do. He got into business school and learned the business side because he has this mindset of wanting to build a company of his own one day, right? And you can learn technology, you can find the best people that are going to make you very effective to build a company or build a product or solution, thanks to AI these days. But you're still going to need to know how to run a business, how to build a business, right? How to sell the business, right? How to market the business. And that's all foundational to me, at least for a business degree, right? The cybersecurity components, I think people can probably learn them quicker, or I know they will learn them much quicker than in the past, thanks to AI. Or again, the ability to just hire one rock star that has built all their agents that can do multiple things that used to take an army worth of people in the past, right? So it's going to be able to be scaled down, hire effectively, and leverage AI to build out true companies and solutions. And I think a business degree, in my opinion, would be more impactful than a current IT engineering or AI or cybersecurity degree.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy time. It's crazy time where to be like inch wide, mile deep on a particular niche
Yes.
isn't really a differentiator anymore because you've got this thing on your phone and whatever that can do that. You can ask it anything.
It will do it.
Yeah. And most of the time it gives you the right answer. Don't 90% of the time, whatever. It's only going to get better. So it's almost like you want to be like a T-shaped person, don't you? And have this like broad knowledge of a lot of stuff, so you can pull on things, and then maybe an expertise in.
I've been fascinated how many of my personal friends that aren't like IT or have that mindset have either hired someone or done it themselves these days, and they have this little Mac Mini at their house that's well sectioned off and protected, but have all these little agents, one for finance, one for marketing, one for my social media, one for my emails, my assistant, doing all these tasks 24/7, right? And again, we're still in the very early stages of this. It's only going to get better and better. So we are in interesting times from an AI perspective, a job cybersecurity perspective, right? And the capabilities of like tools and solutions like us, that if we're not really sticky and provide some solution that can really help an enterprise, then somebody's just going to build an AI system like overnight, probably, that is going to try and replicate it. And I think that's what's happening in the industry right now. Is so many AI tools are being built, very much feature sets to get quick traction. And then either someone gobbles them up, or a bigger player builds something that's just incorporated into more of a productized version. So it's just fascinating how much things are moving these days thanks to AI.
It is. Yeah, I agree. I feel like things like human connection is going to become a lot more valuable. You must get emails all the time from people trying to sell you products and all that sort of thing, cold calling, the text messages sometimes. It all just kind of falls on deaf ears now, doesn't it? Because there's so much slop out there.
Very much a lot of slop. So I was talking to someone yesterday, and you're right, sorry about the tangent, but there's this concept of AI BDRs. So the BDRs are those that cold call, send emails, LinkedIn messages, right? And for the longest time, every company had some type of BDRs, the inside sales team, right? That would be helping the broader sales team get the meeting, get a lead, right? Do the initial introduction. And so people have come up with this concept of AI BDRs. I think Gen 1 of that is they just took every phone number they could find and just blasted out and called all those numbers, or blasted out emails. And then, of course, real quick, our iPhones these days pretty much block out unwanted numbers, right? Or if you're not in my contacts, I'm blocking you completely. So that was the first stopgap, right? So I imagine that these AI BDRs are just going to get more creative, more innovative in order to find their way to someone like you and prospect on my behalf, either using my voice, either because I'm using my LinkedIn connections or whatever. So it's fascinating how fast things are moving and how everything has to be circumvented as it quickly matures. And we just want to avoid the noise, right? I don't answer every call that is unwanted. And these days I probably just block them. But they'll find their way around me to me. I did notice that for this specific RSA, more than ever, I got hit up by companies that wanted to really sell me something or meet with me. And in my opinion, it's because AI has guided them to, this is the person you want to talk to, or it can help you with this, or we'll be able to buy that. But it's more than in the past. So it has to be some AI system that's doing it, not just for me, but maybe to you and others.
Yeah.
So it's just a very noisy, crowded, time.
It is. And I think you're right. I think Gen 1, as you said, it pretty rubbish. I mean, if you get a call from an AI BDR, you kind of know.
These days,
there's a pause, and it sounds a bit weird, but that's now 6 months, give it, and it's going to be indistinguishable between you and a real person, basically.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend, and he said that what we're experiencing now in early 2026. Probably 1 year from now, we're going to be like, man, those times were so easy. 6, right? To detect, to identify, it's because it's just moving so fast.
Yeah. Yeah. And I keep asking people about their predictions for the next, 12 months, 5 years, and they're going, I don't know.
I don't know either. But things that we see in its infancy and that we're excited about are just going to quickly mature. That's what we can expect.
Oh, scary. One last thing, because I'm interested in how people come with ideas for their business and the name as well. when was the aha moment for Abstract, and where did you get the name Abstract from?
My co-founder and CEO found the name. And we always talk about the abstraction layer when we're talking about data. So I think that we were using it in the pitch decks. We were using it in just like how we were building out the concepts of what we wanted to build, and abstract just kept popping up. We actually started with being Abstract Security, and then just recently just shortened it to Abstract, because we are no longer just playing in the security space. We help with IT, we help with observability in broader use cases than just security. So that's been working for us. But for me specifically, the aha moment was at my last job, as we really sold into broad-based markets and many enterprises. Most of them started to tell me, "Hey, you guys have amazing data, but so what? This is so much data. I don't know what to do with it, right? Let me just push it to my SIEM." So I said, interesting. It seems like 80% of our threat intelligence clients are just literally pushing it to the SIEM and letting that system work with the data, because they don't have the time and money to hire like a bunch of analysts to look at the threat intelligence. They want them focused on the SIEM. So my co-founder approached me and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about leaving my current job and, have some ideas on a startup." I go, "That's funny, because I'm getting the itch as well. And one of the areas that I'm seeing is that everyone's asking, how do you operationalize all this data? And this SIEM is probably the right time, right place." Around this time, Cisco had bought Splunk. The SIEM, the old school SIEMs were doing some other activity, actually being sold to this, and Curator to Palo. And so we're like, it probably is the right time to come up with a true next gen SIEM. CrowdStrike was just starting to really mature into the SIEM space, and others were coming in. So that's what we set out to build. My goal was just, how do I help companies operationalize, work on data faster? He had a big SIEM mindset. He was early ArcSight, which is probably the grandfather of all the SIEMs. And so he always lived and breathed data in SIEMs. The idea came together. We have a third co-founder that brought the threat research arm that's how we actually distinguish ourselves. We bring our knowledge of threat research and operating on threat intelligence into our platform. And that's kind of what's differentiated us in the very crowded market.
That's incredible. Well, look, and I think it's worked. I see your name everywhere. I've talked to people who know Abstract, which is really something to say in this world, in this society at the minute, where there's so many cybersecurity businesses trying to fix things. Your name keeps popping up, so it's amazing.
No, thank you for having me. Yeah, this is great. I appreciate the time. I actually rarely do podcasts, so this is probably one of the first I've done in a while. So this was great. I appreciate the time, especially here at RSAC.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
And that's it for this week's episode. Thanks so much for listening, and I really hope you enjoyed it. Anything we talked about will be linked in the show notes. And if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. And we'll catch you on the next one.